just gonna have some music in the background so you get ready to start. And so when we go live, it's not just everyone needs compassion, love that is forgiveness, kindness of a Savior, the hope of nations. Take me as a oh my God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. This is why you're the Facebook, you know. Jesus conquered the grave. You better sing for.
Good. Okay. So today we are continuing in our discussion of the prayer of confession. And on last week we took did a capsule summary of the text, Psalms 51. Today what we want to do is we want to look closely at the daily study. We're going to attempt to cover days 1 through 5 again in sort of a capsule summary. But the first thing I want to do is beginning here with day 1. I want to read the text. The text here for day 1 is taken from Matthew chapter 6, verses 12 and 13. Here again, this is uh, this is Jesus' model prayer. Again, this is, there's some discussion as to whether or not this is a prayer that Jesus prayed himself. Uh, Personally, I don't think that this is his prayer, if you will. I am of the opinion that what Jesus is doing here, he is giving them, if you will, a model. He's giving them a guideline, if you will, by which when you pray, how you pray, what things you should pray for, how do you prepare yourself, if you will, when he says, go into your secret closet and shut the door. He's just giving his disciples those guidelines on how they should pray and how if they would do these things that Jesus is instructing them to, how their life, their prayer life will be different from that of the Pharisees, the scribes, and others who claim to have a relationship with God, but they don't necessarily have the type of relationship that Jesus has and the type of relationship that he wants us to have with God the Father. So let's look at Matthew chapter 6, verse 12, 13, and it reads, and I'm reading here reading from the New English Translation. Uh, I kind of like the translation. It was put out by Dallas Theological Seminary. It says here, and forgive us our debts as we ourselves have forgiven our debtors. And do not lead us into temptation, but deliver us from the evil one. So, uh, now the point of this whole lesson has been, if we confess our sins to God, well then, if we confess, if we come to God in repentance, that God will forgive. Um, and so here today, at day one, the author wants us to begin with knowing that only God alone, can forgive our sins. It's important that we be mindful of. It's important fact to think about. This was an issue that the scribes and Pharisees had with Jesus. When Jesus said to a man who was lame, Jesus said to him, thy sins are forgiven. And they they said it very well. They had the perfect response. They said, only God can forgive sins. And so that's what we're here talking about. I want to read this commentary for you. It says, we shouldn't be surprised to learn confession of sin is a part of the model prayer. But we might be surprised it's not the first thing on the list. The psalmist acknowledged that if he held on to unconfessed sin, all his other prayers would be invalidated. If I had been aware of malice in my heart, the Lord would not have listened. Psalm 16. The prayer of confession means we accept personal accountability for what we've done. When we come to God in prayer, we're not attempting to hide behind feelings as Adam and Eve did when they realized they done wrong and tried to cover themselves. See Genesis chapter 3, verse 7. Instead, we pray transparently, admitting our need for forgiveness. In the original language, the form of the verb translated forgive urges immediate action. It's as if Jesus was urging us to pray, forgive us now. We have a need to confess our sins without delay. The verb also indicates a completed action, which communicates that we desire forgiveness that's both complete and thorough. We never need to deal with the sin again because God's forgiveness is final and complete. Notice then, if you will, that the action that he's describing here is that when we know and understand that God alone can forgive, that this action, well, it encompasses a great deal. Uh, when God alone can forgive, why? Because on one hand, He's the ultimate judge. He's the final authority. Any violation of the law, any violation of morality is a violation against God's standard. It's a violation of the law that He Himself established. It's not only that we when we sin against others or that we violate we do. Ultimately, it's a violation against God's law and against God's character Himself. Violated. He's the only one then who can rightfully grant a pardon. Notice what he says. He says, Jesus says that we should pray, forgive us our debts. Our debts. Here, notice that he uses the personal pronoun, our debts. When we go to God in prayer, one thing we can't do, we don't do, is we can't ask forgiveness on behalf of somebody else. You know, it's a personal matter. You know, we each and everyone have the personal responsibility of coming to God and attempting to make right our relationship with God. We have to essentially settle the account that's against us on God's behalf. So notice what he does then. He says, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. What he's calling for here, what he's addressing us, asking us to do then, is to, in the same way that we have dealt with others, by being forgiving to others, and he's calling for us then to show others the same respect, to show others the same courtesy. And in doing so, we're asking God to make my relationship right and clean, to restore the broken fellowship that was caused when we ended the sin, when we did the wrongful act. So yes, forgive us our debts. That happened, bro. So what we're doing then is we're looking at a daily study in a Sunday school book. So we're doing day one. It says God alone can forgive sin. Then the question then here, that one of the things that our author wants us to think about is, what are the benefits of forgiving others? And so right here in our passage, what it says then is that one of the benefits of forgiving others is the benefit of having received forgiveness ourselves. We can't rightfully expect that if we hold grudges, if we hold offenses, if we hold others accountable for wrongdoing that they've done against us, we can't rightfully expect then that when we go to God, that we get a clean slate. That's why it says, forgive us our debt as we have forgiven. Notice here, he used this little small word as, which makes a comparison. And so what's happening is what our relationship with God is being compared to our relationship with others. And in the same way that we conduct ourselves with others, at least as it relates to forgiveness and as it relates to an offense, if we make a practice of being unforgiving to others when others offend us, hey, Jesus says here that, hey, God is taking notice. He's making a comparison here. When somebody comes to you in the right heart, the right spirit, and when they come to you in remorse and they ask, hey, look, forgive me. I did this wrong. I'm sorry. I realize the harm I've done. Please, let's make this right. And if you have the audacity, no, you did this, you gotta pay. God sees the heart of the other individual who came to you and asked for leniency, asked for mercy. And he sees your heart who's unwilling to show mercy to the one who asks of you. You know he does. You come to God looking for mercy. He's taking notice. And he's comparing. Look, as a judge, as a ruler, as one who's been offended, you offended me. You broke my law. Why should I pardon you when here's a lesser person? Here's a person right here with you. Not a king, not a legal authority. Here's just a common everyday individual who asks you out of the pure heart to forgive him for the wrong that they was committed. And you want that good. He said, hey, we got to pay for that. Notice also when he says, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. You know, one of the benefits of forgiving others is a restored relationship. When we take the opportunity to forgive others, we're not just either maintaining a debt or canceling out of debt. It's not as though whatever the price was, whether it was a day's wages or whatever that stands lingering, whatever the debt itself is. It's not just that we're just writing off the debt. What we're doing is we're restoring a relationship. The person who's forgiven can now hold their head up now. They can now stand before the one for whom they've been forgiven with knowing that, hey, our relationship is okay now. They don't have to come with their head held down, feeling as though that, they're gonna take what's mine. I'll be held accountable in some kind of way that possibly may be too much for me to bear. They may take my life, they throw me in jail, may be held in some awful way that's too much for me to bear. Is the relationship worth more than the debt itself? I think it is. And so when we have the opportunity to forgive, I think that's one of the things that we also need to keep in mind is what's really important here? Is it my feelings? Man, you didn't pay me back my money. And so if I let you go away, own me, just anybody can think they just get my money and not have to pay me back. And I can't have that. Is it your feelings that's hurt? Or something, don't want somebody to think that that you're weak or punk or whatever because you just let the debt go like that. So what? What about the relationship? Is it more important for two people to be able to walk together and agree than it is to constantly have somebody owing me in my hip pocket? I own him because he owed me. The debt, the debt never gets canceled, it never gets paid. So what happens? the relationship is never really restored. Mhm. I mean, think about it every day. Think about, I mean, just in everyday business. Think about what it means when, you know what, you have this, whether you have a credit card bill, or whether it's a bill at a department store, you know, you got a Home Depot account somewhere, and what happens? Maybe you run up a charge, and you're busy trying to pay it off, and maybe you forget a payment, and then they tack on a late charge, and the late charge causes you to go over your limit. And so now they tack on, you know, besides the late charge, they tack on an over limit fee. And if you don't get all this cleared up within a certain amount of time, you know what happens? Keep on, keep on tacking on fees because you can't get caught up. And so finally one day, what you say, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna take a chance and I'm gonna call up people and explain them my situation and see if I can get some leniency, see if I can get some help. So you call up Home Depot credit card accounts and you tell me your story and the person on the phone asks you, well, you know, how did you get so far behind? How did you get over your limit? And you tell them, well, here's what happened. You know, I got behind one time, well, got busy and I forgot to make my payment like I normally do. And you know what? They added on a late fee, and the late fee took me over the limit. And then the over limit fee just kept on coming. It got out of control. I couldn't meet it. And so the tenant on the phone tells you, you know what? Because you call us with the concern, and you know, and you want to clear your account. What I can do is I can knock off. All of a sudden now, you feel this huge burden removed. And so, and so you go ahead and you make a payment. And now as a result, your account is back where it should be. Your payments are back, you know, back on time. You're not gonna be limited anymore because they understood what happened, understood how you got behind, and they wiped away this debt. They canceled out a charge. So that lifted burden that you feel is an example of what happens when we forgive others. The uplifting of the burden of that relationship is what others benefit when we forgive them. But also when we forgive others, well, guess what? When the time comes for us to be forgiven by God, God remembers, He recalls that act of kindness that you showed to others. And He says here, based on that same behavior, because you were merciful to somebody else, I'm going to be merciful to you, and I'm going to forgive your debt. And so, just like the one who's, you know, on Depot balance was now having had God to lift the burden of the debt. So that's day one. Let's take a look at day two. Well, if you have your Bible, would you mind reading Psalm 51, verse 1 to 3? Okay, good. Psalm 51, verses 1 to 3.
This is coming from the NIV.
Correct.
Putting it up here. Okay, so Psalm 51, verses 1 to 3. Have mercy on me, O God, according to your unfailing love, according to your great compassion, blot out my transgressions.
Wash away all my iniquity, cleanse me from my sin. For I know my transgressions, and my sin is always before me.
Okay, thank you very much. So notice here, so we're moving only God can forgive sin. But in day two, what we want to be reminded of is the fact that we can't hide our sins from God. Mhm. Since we can't hide our sins from God, we may as well take them to God so that He can forgive them because He has knowledge of it. He's very much aware. So let's look at this. He said, David, David praying his prayer. He asked for God to have mercy. Let me read the commentary here. That David had sinned. God knew, and David knew. David had covered his sin from everyone but God and his own country. As he tried to suppress his guilt, his spiritual life dried up. David wrote later, when I kept silent, my bones became brittle from my groaning all day long. For day and night, your hand was heavy on me. My strength was drained as in the summer's heat. That's from Psalms 32, verse 34. David here describes his experience, the inward aftermath that he's experienced, because not only from God, but his conscience, his inward bowels are virtually testifying against him. He can't have any inner peace, no rest. When I kept silent, my bones became brittle. It's literally like seeing here that the strength that he once had was literally drained away from him, not because of anything else. He could attempt to go on he could go on with the daily life, but it doesn't matter what he did or how he attempted to hide it. Inwardly, he not only did he find no peace, but to make matters worse, his strength. So this being the case, then we could ask the question: why is that? Why is it then that when we sin like David did, why is it that we can't have any peace? Why is it we can try to go on with our life? We can try and do other things. We can try and run or hide or ignore what's going on. But why is it that often those attempts to hide or those attempts to ignore or cover up, why is it that those attempts are often fail? It's because since God has knowledge of our actions, what he does is take it upon his business to not allow us to have any rest until we come to him and seek correction, seek forgiveness. The only way there can be any true peace, peace that comes from God in our life after we've sinned, is that we get right with God. And so it's as though then God goes on this experience, this journey until our relationship with Him is restored. Now, when I think of this, I think about those days growing up at home, growing up living with my dad, and I remember, I remember when I had done something wrong, and you lose all your privilege. You can't talk on the phone, can't watch TV, can't go outside, can't have friends come over, can't do anything. The only thing you can do is think about what you did and how you gonna pay for it. That's the only thing you can do. And it happens full time. And so until you realize, and David often say, you gonna sit here and think about what you've done until you decide you're not gonna do this no more. And you're gonna think about how you're gonna make this right. If this was happening again, what you gonna do differently? And literally sitting there in your room, can't do anything, can't talk about it. You know what? You watch life pass you by. You look out the window and you see friends out there having a good time. Maybe some. You know, you go to the door and you tell them I can't come outside. Or maybe that's how Dad would say, hey, look, he on punishment. He can't come outside. No, he can't have any company. He can't do anything. You know, I remember time there was friends that you wouldn't see them for 2 weeks. You know, get out of school, go straight home. You come home from church, or come home from somewhere with your family, and get out the car, and your friends, all they do, and they might speak to you. Hey, come on, you just go straight in the house. Yeah. The plan is not over. You gotta pay for what happened. So God makes it His business to make sure that we don't have any peace inside until that relationship is restored. So that's what happened here with David when he talks about what's happening in his inward parts. And so naturally, then the only natural response for David is to do what? To not only to confess, but to plead to God for mercy. Have mercy on me. You know, the request for mercy, if you will, is in some cases of wrongdoing, mercy that comes from God because of this deeds I've done. Here, here's a question that he gives us in the text. And I just throw this question out there. So, he says, what are the dangers of unforgiveness?
One, if you don't forgive, you won't receive your blessings.
Okay.
Entirely.
Okay. Give me an example.
Example is, I had a white guy spit on my feet, on my shoe. I hated him. He died. I went to the funeral. I told his wife that I'm sorry. I didn't get a chance to tell him I'm sorry. But I did. I hid it. We had a conflict. I went to jail. They kicked it out in court. But I went to his funeral and went to his house before he died to tell him, to mend my problem.
Okay.
They was racist and they like, he don't have any black friends. I'm from the job. Well, you can just leave a letter or leave a card. So I went to the funeral. And I was the only black person approached the family, and I told them, in my heart, I needed to say, and I was young, that bothered me because my uncle was a preacher and he kept saying, you won't be forgiven until you go back to that person. And in my sense, in my mind, by me being young, little things was happening. I'm like, and it would come up in my head. You never said you never go to him and apologize. So that took me a long way. And then when I went to the funeral and said it to his family, I felt some relief. And I felt like God heard me, but something told me like, don't wait too long next time. It ain't your time. You do it on time. And it bothered me as I was growing up.
Okay.
So I learned, if somebody did something to you go to them then. You don't let it lay.
Okay.
So that kind of bothered me when I was growing up because I did hit the man. I hit the man and kind of fractured it. I didn't have no love for him. But when we returned back to work, and they said, well, Mr. Woods, you can't go back on the line. You commit. And the same white man standing there, and I just looked at him, and some said, say forgiveness then, ask him forgiveness. John, I was in my teens. There's no way in the world I'm gonna ask a white man to forgive me. It's just stuff. But it bothered me as I grew up, and as I got older, I understood. After I joined church,
Right.
but I was, and the Spirit led me to go apologize. And you know who said, okay, we accept it? A teenage daughter.
Wow.
Said, yes, I don't know your name, but we accept your apology. Because I know how my daddy was.
See, that's awful. On one hand, sometimes it takes time.
It took time.
Sometimes by the time we're ready to forgive or ready to ask for forgiveness, sometimes the conditions, the conditions have changed. People relocate, people get older and forget. In this case, you have the passing of the individual. And so now, why you feel a strong need to really talk to that person and express, because it's to that person that you did the offense. So you feel like I need to talk to that person, in order to really and truly express my sorry and really truly be forgiven. I got to make things right between me and that person. So then when you can't do that, and somebody else may not quite understand.
Because his family, they knew I was the one that cracked his jaw. Because, they, during the trial, and they throw it out of court. Because when I walked and talked, you could hear the mumbling, what this nigga want, what he doing. And I overlooked all of that. And I told the wife, and the kids was like, it's step. But it took a kid down here. She stepped up one step out the aisle, whatever said, and said, sir, I accept your apology on behalf of my father because I knew what my father was. And I knew you and him had conflict, but anyway. And they all looked at her like, what are you doing? And we was in front of, they period.
So think about it, and that makes it to move forward, to be able to go forward and not have that guilt constantly lingering over you and constantly feeling the need to have to try to go through steps, to try to make restitution for something that happened so long ago. You realize how many people do that?
I don't know, but it bothered me.
It happens in dating relationships all the time where one party in the relationship, they do something break the other person's heart, and then they stay together, or sometimes they don't stay together. But the party who did this feels like they need to try to make things right, and they spend all this time trying to make things right, and the other person who has the ability to forgive And so all this time and energy is spent. So much time and energy.
Yeah, and see, at that time that the events happened, I wasn't in church. There's no way in the world you're gonna tell me I was wrong. And so but after I got into church and see the Lord, it was what, over a period of 2 years or so, then I seen better. I seen myself, what if the truth was different? What if this was different? Then I seen the difference and that made it. That took a light, like you say, it lifted that load off. It lifted that load off. At least I said, forgive me.
Let's look at day 3. In day 3, now we've talked about only God can forgive sin. That's day 1. So in day 2, we realize again that we can't hide our sin from God. So now on day 3, what we've been asked to realize then is that our sin always distances us from God. Our sin causes this wide gulf. Let me read this. And now this is taken from the passage of scripture is taken from 1 John 1:9. That's a passage he wants us to kind of focus on for day 3. But in the commentary, let me read this for you. He says, Alaska has essentially one key route out of the state. My wife and I left Fairbanks headed south toward the Canadian border, but somehow in the days before GPS, I made a wrong turn and drove over 100 miles in the wrong direction. Then I had only one option. I had to turn around and go back to the place where I had veered off course and start over. When King David committed adultery and murder, his life certainly went off course. Spiritually, and we can never veer off course on God's path for us in much the same way. Though we may not be guilty of the same sin as David, all of us have strayed from the path. The good news is God always allows us to start over. We can begin again. That's what happened to King David. He sought the Lord in prayer to find restoration and a new beginning. Think about this now. I remember I had been in a relationship and everything was south. Everything just my whole life was anything terrible. And to a certain extent, it felt like I had gotten abandoned. But I later realized that was kind of God allowed me to feel the effects of my actions and couldn't give me peace. And there was this wide gulf for me. I couldn't go home to my mama and get some love and attention from her. No. You did this wrong, stay where you at. Anybody I tried to talk to, man, everybody said the same thing. And you did this. It's no use. Constantly, everything reminds you of you headed in the wrong direction. You made a wrong turn. You made a wrong decision, a bad decision. So what do? Like you said,